Welcome back to another video. So, a week ago I played my first ever classical chess tournament. And in this video I'm going to recap the games that I played. The first game was a disaster. So, I played the modern defense. Went like this. Queen e2, knight f6, went here. And here I found this great idea. I trade on e5, and queen to d5 hits the rook in the corner and also hits this pawn. And so he went here. So now I'm winning this pawn. You know, everything is pinned. He has to play bishop g7. And if I just castle here, black is just completely winning. The game is basically over. And I saw that. I saw that I could castle and I'm winning. But then I was like, why can't I just simplify and offer takes? I just take this pawn. And we're just trading queens. I'm going to be up 2 pawns in an endgame. But I didn't realize that this comes with check. And, you know, I had 50-something minutes on the clock. So, yeah, I just lose my queen. And, you know, there's not much more to say, I guess, about this game. It's the first game of the first tournament. You know, it happens. And I wasn't too shaken. Because I felt that I was the stronger player. Other than this blunder. Moving on. My second game, I was playing a 1927 rated WCM, so a titled player. And I had the white pieces. I played e4. So we ended up with this kind of French structure. And I went knight b to d2 because I thought maybe my opponent was trying to put the knight on b3. I castle, and out of the opening I was doing very well. Here, you know, I played a4, and my point is that after b takes a4, I'm actually going to take on c4. And this, although black has a passed pawn, this pawn is more of a weakness and a liability than it is a strength. You know, there's never any b5. And white and also black is like very, very underdeveloped. So I felt like I was doing really well here. And now I can play c5. And I play c4. The computer thinks this is a mistake because, you know, the better plan apparently was just to double the rooks on the a file and go after this pawn right away. But c4 is also a really good move. And my idea is that I want to get rid of this of this weakness. I want to trade off like my doubled pawns and my weak pawn. So I trade the pawns, and I found this really nice move. Knight back to b1 is a very weird looking move, but it's the best move. And my point was that, first of all, the knight's not doing anything on b2. And from b1, my knight, first of all, I can go to c3, where it forks these 2 pawns, and it's actually pretty difficult to deal with. Because how are you going to defend this pawn? Additionally, my knight can also go to this very nice square, where it's supported by these pawns. And also from b1, I thought, you know, maybe I also have knight a3, because I thought, you know, maybe after knight b4, these 2 squares are controlled by both the knight and the bishop, and I thought, you know, maybe this bishop is really annoying, and if the knight gets to b4, I'm never going to be able to oppose this bishop with my light square bishop. And I thought, you know, maybe it might be useful to have this move in order to at least like fight for the c2 square. But okay, I mean, mainly the idea is to go knight c3. So he goes here, and here I play knight c3, attacking, you know, threatening to win a pawn somewhere. And my opponent went here, and here I saw that I had knight takes d5, and after knight takes, bishop takes, you know, white is much better. But for some reason, I started to be a little bit scared. I started to be maybe a little bit concerned about this past pawn. I thought maybe, I was giving my opponent a little bit too much credit, maybe. I was intimidated by my opponents, this being my first tournament and not really knowing what to expect. I thought maybe, b6 and, maybe like this pawn is very strong. Maybe like the knight is getting in. So instead of taking this pawn, I just went to knight to b5, which is also good. Threatening this fork. I was with castles, and my point was I'm just gonna win this pawn, and I thought I'm up a pawn, I have this strong center, and I'm doing very well. But black is able to play b6 and kind of break apart my structure. Go here. My opponent plays f5, f4, and here I saw that I could take the knight, and then after, let's say, pawn takes, takes, and takes. I saw that white is up a pawn here, and white is a pass pawn, and this knight is actually, very restricted, and my knight is coming here maybe. But I was like, okay, but what if I take first, and then I take the knight, and let's say bishop takes. I thought this was just a better version because the pawn structure is better for white. So I took the pawn, and after rook takes, what I missed was that black can take the bishop, and black has knight b4, which is kind of tricky because black is threatening checkmate, and at the same time black is hitting the knight, and I completely missed this. But I didn't play knight e3 because I thought, knight b3, so I just played knight c3, and the game goes on. White is still my opponent took here, but white is still up a pawn, and white is still better. But I just wanted to quickly point out another line here. After I took this pawn and rook takes, the best move apparently is to throw in this in-between move before capturing the knight. And the point here is that if you do nothing, if you move the knight, let's say, then this knight is hanging. And no matter what you take the knight with, it comes with tempo. So if knight takes, the bishop is hanging and the knight is still hanging. And if bishop takes, this still comes with tempo, because if you move the knight, then this is coming, and you cannot stop promotion, or at least winning the knight. So that's why white actually has time to throw in this in-between move, knight to d6, before capturing the knight on c2. But okay. I played h3. My opponent blundered with this move. And it's a blunder because I can just kick the rook away. And now I'm just attacking, forking these two pieces. So my opponent has to give up the exchange, and now I'm up the exchange, and I'm up a pawn. So white is completely winning here. I played g3 to stop knight f4. And we're both low on time here, and here I start to get really worried, because first of all, so the knight is pinned to the king, and I can't move it away because I just lose a knight. So my king has to stay on these three squares in order to, keep in contact with the knight. But if I can't go here right away, of course, because this is a fork. But even if, let's say I go like this, I was like, if I ever step to this square, then I'm getting checked here. If I go here, I'm getting checked, and it's back. It's the same thing. And if I go here, it's same thing. My king is still stuck here. So I was like, I can't go to any. I'm kind of basically stuck on these squares. I can't really make progress. So I started to get really worried here, and and I was very low on time. So all the way back here, when you played bishop f6, I decided to just sacrifice a rook. And this way, there's no way I'm going to lose the game. And I thought I still had winning chances here, which white does, I think. So I played knight f4, and white can never lose. My pawns are on the light squares. And I thought maybe I have some winning chances. And here, after he took my pawn, apparently f takes is winning, and h takes is not. I think, yeah, I took with the h pawn, and apparently this is a draw. And here, this is my last moment to maybe win the game. The engine says it's a draw, but if I had found king e6, I probably would have won the game. And the point is that I'm going to check the king and force it away, and I'm going to plant my king on f5. And basically, I'm infiltrating on the light squares. And I'm going to reroute my knight and somehow just pressure this pawn. And the only way for black to hold is to basically just keep these two defenders on the pawn. But it's very tricky because, my knight, let's say it lands here, then it would attack the king and the pawn. I don't want to go too deep into this, but I think that if I had played king e6, we were both low on time. I think I definitely would have won this game if I had found this move. Basically, the way that you would draw this is you have to prevent my knight from coming here by playing king g7 at the right time, etc. But yeah, without getting into all that, as I didn't play king e6, I played king e4. And after we trade the pawns, like, we play on, but there's just no way for white to make progress. And, after a couple moves, we agreed to a draw. So overall, I thought I played a really good game. I just wasn't able to convert it, and my opponent did defend quite well, to be fair. Alright, so moving on to the last game. So in my third game, I was playing the white pieces against a 2030 rated player. So I knew that my opponent would be strong. My opponent played Caro-Kann. I decided to play the Von Hennig Gambit, which is not a sound opening, but I knew that my opponent wouldn't expect it. And I just wanted to stay in my comfort zone rather than go into an opening that my opponent is very familiar with. So here, my opponent burned like 20-something minutes, like 20 minutes, and he played e6. And here I should have just castled and captured the pawn, and I'm doing completely fine. But to be honest, I was a little bit intimidated because of the fact that my opponent had spent like 25 minutes. And and I started to kind of get worried about, what if like b5, b4. And in general, I was like, I just want to keep up the initiative. Like, I'm okay being down a pawn. I thought maybe rook c1, maybe I have like d5 just to open things up in the future. But I played knight h3 first. And here, apparently, I should have just traded, but, I didn't want to trade pieces being down a pawn. So I wanted to be active, so I played queen e5. And my opponent here goes knight to b4. And this looks really scary, because the idea is to put the knight on d3, where it would fork my king, my rook, and my queen. So naturally, I played knight to f4, guarding the square. And here, my opponent played knight h5, trying to deflect my knight off of f4. So in order to enable this move, and winning my queen. In this position, I was looking at knight takes g6, but I didn't look at, the full lines, and I basically thought that this was not possible. But actually, knight takes g6 is possible, and I want to go over this line really quick. So first of all, knight d3 check, king f1, and here actually taking the queen is a mistake, because after knight takes, bishop takes f7 is unstoppable. And you can't go e6 because you lose the queen. In this position, actually, bishop takes f7 would be checkmate. So black has to play a move like queen a5. And after a check here, importantly, white is winning the picking up the knight on h5 at the end of the line. And white ends up with 3 pieces in exchange for the queen. And actually, white is doing much better. White is winning. But that's not the end of the story, though, because after knight takes g6, knight d3 check, king f1, black doesn't have to take the queen just yet. Black can just capture back on g6, and this fork still exists. So let's say, white has to play a move like queen e6. Let's say knight takes c1. check here, and white should throw in this check, and then pick up the knight. And after this move, white is down the exchange, and white is down a pawn. But apparently, you know, with the bishop pair, with the kind of exposed king, you know, with the more active pieces maybe, apparently this is roughly equal. I don't think I would have gone for this even if I had seen it. Instead I played knight c to e2, which is like much more reasonable, I feel. So here we trade knights, and I get time to play a3, kicking the knight away. We trade the other knights, and I found e6 here, which is a good move. And I play bishop c2. My point is that if you castle, I'm gonna grab the pawn on a7. And also, you know, I thought my bishop is more active along this diagonal. Maybe I can reroute it to here and pressure these pawns, maybe. And here I go bishop c2. We trade bishops. I get castled. I play rook d1, trying to infiltrate with my rook. And I found this nice move. I infiltrate with my rook. And after rook takes b7, I'm actually forking these two rooks, or these two pawns. And this doesn't work because after I take, if rook takes, I take this pawn, and if pawn takes, I take that pawn. And white is actually much better here because the white's pawn structure is just better. And additionally, my rooks are more active. And here I spent some time and I played h3, which is the best move, in order to hide my king on h2. We trade rooks, I pick up a pawn. And actually now I feel like I've kind of, you know, outplayed my opponent in this endgame. I'm up a pawn now, and only white can be better here. Like, my opponent plays king g6, king g7 to guard this pawn. And apparently the best idea is to put the rook on the a file, basically paralyzing black's position, because if the rook ever moves, then I'm taking this pawn with check. Instead I went here, which is a mistake. And here I had, this is my last chance to win the game, but I should have played b4. I think what was going on in my head was I wanted to trade. I was tired. I've been playing chess for a while, and I just thought that if we trade and we simplify, you know, obviously only white can be winning. But if I play b4 and you know, maybe followed by rook a6, then you know, I can bring my king over. I can make a pass pawn here, and I should be able to win. Instead, I go for this, and what I had completely overlooked is that after this trade, my king is actually never getting into the game, because I can't go here, and I can't come around this way either, because if let's say my king is on g1, then check, it goes here, then check, then I have to stay in contact with the pawn. Otherwise, you know, if I run this way, then he's gonna pick up this pawn. So at this point, I realized that there's no way for white to win. I had to, whoops. Basically, what I had to do here was you know, play b4, bring my king over, maybe, you know, maybe play rook a6, and I have great winning chances. But it's, yeah. I mean, it's still kind of drawish, like, either way, but here eventually I have to give up the pawn, and this is just a draw. And the way that I draw this is just by keeping the rook on the e file, and the black king can never get back into the game. So we just shuffle around, and at some point we traded rooks, and I played king e2, and we agreed to a draw here. So overall, I was technically winning in all 3 games, and I felt like, you know, I played okay though, you know, being my first tournament, playing against some strong players, and I feel that the win is coming. So I ended tournament with 2 draws and a loss. My performance rating was 1810, and the good thing is that in my next tournament, which I'm playing in a week, I get to play the under 2000 section, just barely, because if I had if I had performed under 1800 here, then I would be one section lower in the upcoming tournament, and which would be like way too low, I feel, because I definitely underperformed in this tournament. But you know, I'm lucky to get away with over 1800 rating, you know, which has good implications for my next tournament. And even though I didn't get a win, I'm pretty happy with the way that I played, and I think, you know, just with more experience, naturally I will climb closer to my real rating. Okay, thanks for watching.